Okay, let's get started. Okay, let them join again.
Okay, sir.
So, in today's class, we'll talk about SQL database. Okay,
Yeah,
uh, do you know anything about SQL database?
no, sir.
Okay, so normally SQL is a relational database, right? It's a collection of information which we store in the form of tables and that tables, indexes, views, and will establish a relationships between them. So that's why it's called a relational database. Okay, so basically organizing the data which defines a relationship for each axis, right? And the data structures that includes tables, indexes, views, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there are two layers. One is physical storage, and then on top there will be a logical store that enables uh, without any impacting the end users. We can easily manage the logical data structure. All right, so the diagram you can see the student and course information. So there are a couple of students and there are a couple of courses that the company offers. So which student had opted for which course, and you see the way the data been organized, right? So we have student information coming with the ID and name, and also we are also courses information we are storing at ID and name, and we also have another table being created uh, to uh, to create a relationship between students and courses, and we created student courses where we have defined the students which are opted for the respective courses. For example, student ID 1 has opted for 1, 2, 3. Similarly, student ID 2 has opted for 3 and 4. Right? And student number 3 has opted for 3 and 5. Okay. So this is how we organize the data in a database, and we establish the relationships between the tables to make more sense in terms of each access, and that's why it's called a relational database. Okay, so Microsoft Azure provides a managed platform as a service database engine called Azure SQL Database. Okay, so it's completely managed by Azure. You need not worry about any upgrading, patching, backups, or any other stuff. It's easily usable, and you can create a database within a minutes. Okay, so now it also comes up with a different high available, high performance data storage layer that the applications can run on top of Azure SQL database. Okay, so it's a very it's a kind of a modern database. You can be used across the use cases for relational data and non-relational databases. Okay, so now in today's class will be the classes of Azure SQL database. Let's deep dive into what the some of the details. Okay, so now anything that comes is purchasing models, right? So we need to There are different models available that requires for the use case and the organization. We can decide which model to buy, and we can choose accordingly. Okay, and similarly, there are different tiers also available. Okay, for example, we have general purpose, business critical, hyperscale, and also we have standard as well as premium. All right. So depending on the use case, depending on the need, we will be choosing the right service tier that fits to the SQL database. And also coming to computer tiers, right? So what kind of computing power we need? Okay, so it's again gives an opportunity to select the compute tiers that require for the workload. And there are two provisioned compute tier and other serverless compute tier. Okay, so the benefit of serverless is basically auto scales, and you need not worry about scaling and scale out when the data grows. And the compute, we need more compute power, and when the data less, we need less computers. So they automatically scales in and scales out. Okay, so in most of the organizations, they use the serverless compute tier, so that the management and is very less. Now it also comes with a deployment model. So what kind of deployment model is suitable for your use case? Is it a single database or an elastic pool? Okay, so single database is a fully managed again, and is dedicatedly given to you and the organization, the purchasing organization. And elastic pool is basically a collection of databases available in a pool. Anyone can use it. It's a sharing the resources. Okay, sharing the resources whenever you need. Okay, so these two are very important in terms of the understanding the cloud concepts and offerings. Okay, so just if you hear elastic pool and all, so you need to remember this. Now let's create a quick database. Okay, so we need a database. So if you go to Azure portal, you can see SQL databases, and if you click on create, you see we need to fill the basic information. Of course, the subscription and resource group which populates automatically. So we are into free subscription, and there is a resource group called demo been created. Okay, and then we need to provide the database details. Now understand this. See, there are um, we need to provide the database name and the server that we are going to create, right? So we will have a server, and under the server there could be tens and hundreds of databases we can create, right? One for marketing, one for finance, one for HR. You can create a number of databases, okay, based on the server capacity and all. So those details we need to provide. So when we provide these details, Azure automatically creates the server as well as the database for you. Okay, so I have already created a server which is ID of SQL Server demo, which is available. So it's automatically coming up. Otherwise, you can create a new one. So if you create a new one, you can give the server name and the location you want to deploy. That's it. Okay, and just click on OK. Okay. So now you see it asks the elastic pool. You want to use elastic pool. Okay, so it's just kind of a general purpose. We don't want to use elastic pool or anything because it costs higher than the normal one. Okay, and what kind of compute storage you want, right? So I have selected standard SO, which is a 250 GB of storage and 10 DTs of processing. Okay, So you can also select higher configuration, higher kind of a compute and storage depending on the need and the use case. Okay, so now again we need to select the backup options. So we know we already discussed what is local, what is zonal, and what is geo. So the same options are available. So depending on the option, the backups automatically created managed by Microsoft, and the data going to be uh, distributed based on the redundancy type we select, right? So now this is not a free resource. So as you can see, based on the configuration and all, it's coming to 10 DTUs. So it's costing you 1322 rupees point 56 paise in INR. Okay. So now we are using the free subscription. As many of you know, Microsoft provides 15,000 of credits automatically, right? So you can use those credits and create the database. So this is a estimated cost per month, right? Around 13 to 1500. Okay, assume that you will be doing some practice. So around 1500 is going to be your monthly cost for managing this database. Okay, and that cost, this cost going to be deducted from your account automatically by Microsoft. Since you already have a free credit, so from the free credits, this amount going to be deducted. Okay, so simply you can review and create it. So once you create that, so this is the database is going to be created. Okay, so now you can see the resource group server name. We automatically it gives you based on the name, and we have chosen elastic pool no, and it's under free subscription and a pricing tier. All you can see it over here, right? You can add more tags, you can add see the settings, computer and storage. Okay, so we are using standard budget friendly one. Remember, you see if you depend, for example, if you choose some other thing, it will give you more pricing. You can give a general one also, it will cost you more. Okay, so the standard budget for our demo is what the 1300 to 1500 it costs you. Okay, you can also see the other available tiers and all in the Microsoft documents. You see which model is required for which kind of a workload, and all the stuff is available. Okay, and you can refer over there if you still want to know more about the service tiers and pricing. Okay, so since it's a locally redundant, I have selected, so it's a locally redundant one created, and it's cost us around 13 to 1500. Right, so connection strings. So we have all the JDBC, ODBC connection strings is automatically created. So you can share these connection strings to the applications that can use the SQL database. And management replicas and all other stuff, I think pretty much we know that are applicable to very SQL database. Okay, so one thing to remember is whenever you set up a database, it's not you cannot access automatically. You need to set the firewall. Okay, so that's the best practice whenever you create any resource in the cloud. Okay, you cannot access it by default, and always even in your real time you will be having a public network access going to be disabled, and only you will be allowed to use the selected networks. So how the network going to be selected? For example, either through virtual networks or firewalls, you can set it, and accordingly it will add you. Okay, so you can see in my case, I am using a client which is the one which I logged in. So that IP address been added over here. Okay, so now once you connect, create the database been created. Let me see. Okay, so you can use this query editor to query the database. You can see. You can provide the username, password that you will be providing while creating the. Uh, you can provide the username, password, and then according as you can see now you are able to access the database. You can see the tables, views, stored procedures underneath that have been you can create. So I don't have any views. There is one system view, okay, but I haven't created any views on my own, and there are no stored procedures as well. But I do have some tables I created. Um, you can see the table that are available. For example, I created a card demo, countries, movies, and the test table. So how do you access this data? How do you view the data? Right? So simple select. If you use select star from, you can see the auto populates comes. You which table you want to query. Just give that query and run, and you should be able to see that. You see. You see, you're able to see the data. For example, this table had some 10 records. Okay. Similarly, if you want to access another table, for example, you want to see country table, you can access that as well. You can see the country data. Okay. Similarly, you can create, add more data and delete and all the stuff. You can do that. For example, if I want to create add any, I can use insert into following by the table name. Okay, and what columns I want to insert, make fuel type, sorry, aspiration and a number of. Then you provide a values. Okay, so this is the syntax you need to follow. For example, make I can give Tata, and fuel type is a petrol, and aspiration it's a kind of a normal, and number of doors which is 2. Okay, so similarly, so I need to execute this one. So if you run, you see query succeeded, affected rows 1. Now if you go back and see cost demo, you see the record got inserted over here. Okay. Similarly, you can also play with deleting, updating, all those things. You can do that. So this SQL syntaxes, this SQL are very easy to understand anybody, right? You no need to break too much of syntax or anything. For example, if you see, I want to insert data into the card demo. So simple insert into table name, provide the column names and then values, what values you want to insert, right? So read, there are very plenty of Microsoft Azure SQL database queries that you can learn from online. There are plenty. Even Microsoft provides good documentation. So read some basic things, right? Select, insert, update, delete, right? So these are the common things that will be used across the use cases, and it's required. The minimum SQL is required for ADF, because see, you at the end you need to query the database, you need to update, and if once update, you need to again see whether the updation happened. So the basic syntax and basic queries, SQL statements, one needs to be understand, and one needs to be put some practice over there. Okay. Yeah, I see a hand. Yeah, go ahead, Sravanti.
In what case we do give data types also? While
What?
creating the table, we have to give schema as well, right? Data type schema.
Yeah. So there are two things. So the schema, which is a DBO schema, is the default one. Okay. So if you don't, let's create a table. That's a good question. So create table. I'm not giving any schema. So let the um, let the server takes the default schema, which is DBO. But in real
Okay.
time, you will have a schema name. Right. For example, if you're
Mm.
working in HR schema, HR
Mm.
dot finance dot marketing dot, so those schemas automatically created by the admins within the organization, so you will be using those schemas while creating table. Okay.
Okay.
So now let me create a table called test demo. Okay. And again ID, so I can give integer. Since it's a number, I can give integer, and I give name, which is a varchar. Now when you give varchar, you need to give the size. Okay, so for example, 100 I can give, and again status. This is again varchar, which is status of 10, right? So similarly, so now if I execute this one, you see, query succeeded. Now just refresh here. See, the test demo got created.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are no rows, nothing is exist currently. So if you
Only
select,
schema is created.
yeah, just schema created, and you can see what schema it belong to. For example, ID is integer, and name is varchar, and status is varchar, and you can also mention the not null columns as well. Right? For
Okay.
example, integer you want to manage it's a not null, you can do that as well.
Mm.
Right. So these are simple, easy to understand. It's required some practice. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so do that. That will help you a lot in your career, because when you say data, when you enter into the data space, either data engineer or data analyst or anything, SQL is one of the basic requirement for any of these openings.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody asks you one or two questions in an interview, if you're attending also. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very important to understand.
Also, one more question. What is the difference between tables and views?
So table where we have a physical, for example, I have created, right? So if you see, so this is the physical data the table has,
Oh, yeah.
right? But view is nothing but is a kind of a virtual view of the data. It doesn't have any data of its own. Okay.
Okay.
So what it means is it will act as a window to get the data from one or more tables. Okay.
It
Let's say
means
for
in this
example,
query itself, in the query itself, we'll give the values as well.
right. So no, for example, let's say I want to know how many Tata, like we have so many Tata BMW, right? I want to know how many vehicles of Tata exist. Okay. So what I will do is select make, comma, count, start from Vivo cost, where make equal to Tata. Okay. So now Okay, I need to use group by. You see, Tata, there are three are there. Okay. So now let's say I want to use this, I want to use this in my report. Okay. So what I will do is create a view, cars, Tata. Okay. As
Yes.
so you see, you can also view the, it also gives you uh, the view to, if at all, if you don't know syntax and if you're new to them, you can do that. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can the pop-up automatically comes. Okay,
Yeah.
so what you can do is another way to do is, you see, it automatically gives you where the syntax is error and all. Okay, so create or alter we need to give. So that is the right one. Does it works? Two. Okay, this is as. You see, so we need to give a column name for this as a CNT. Okay. So now what happened is, see, this is basically aggregated value from the cars table, right? I want to know how many cars make of Tata. Okay. So what I did, since I want to reuse I want it again and again, I have created a view. Now select star from, if you do select star from cars Tata, see, you're going to get Tata and 3 automatically. You need not worry, the user need not worry what the query to every time need to write that query. Okay, so it automatically gives the result by executing that query in the backend.
Okay.
Okay, so in this case, does this holds this data? No, it cannot hold. For example, let's say I have created one more. Okay, so let's say, okay, so now if I execute, how many will I get? I should get 4, right? You see 4.
Yeah.
Correct. So what does it mean by it? View is just a logical window to aggregate the data from one or more table. Okay, it will not have it any kind of its own data. It will, whenever you execute that view, whenever you use that view, it automatically goes back and gets the data from different sources, executes that query in the backend, and gives the result instantly to you.
Mm. If there
Right?
are changes, it will give the latest data, but in table
Absolutely
do that.
correct.
Okay.
But the same thing, if you want to know from table, let's say you do not have a view, right? But
Mm.
you want, so you want to again, you have to execute that query again and again, right?
Okay.
So
Mm.
if you want to see that again, you want to execute this query again to get the result.
Mm.
But you, since you have already created view, so you need not worry or remember to this query to execute
Okay.
again and again. It just automatically gives you.
In real time, mostly views or tables will be used.
So the normally views to aggregate the data, right? So here,
Mm.
if you
Yeah.
see, if your workload or the report involves lot of aggregations, a lot of mathematical calculations, if those kind of situations, it's always better to create a view so that
Okay.
it's the data is already the query and the logic behind the report is already you documented, and it's automatically executes that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's do a simple um, demo of how to now we have ADF, right? So from ADF, let's see how we can create some kind of a what I call demo to load the data to directly to table, right? So far if you remember, so far we've been creating pipeline and copying the data between blob storage, right? One blob to another blob, one container to another container, right? Now let's do a simple demo where the data copies from blob storage to a SQL database. Okay, so for that what we need is basically the, you see, whenever you logged in, it automatically shows the credits. Okay. So now, for example, I created a SQL database. So 1300 going to be debited out of these credits. Yeah. Okay. So now first I need to establish the connection to access the SQL database. Right. So in that case, what I need to do is first I need to create a link service. Okay. So let's create a new link service. and here select Azure SQL Database. ls SQL DB. Okay, so just select the remaining fields as is, and the server name automatically comes up here, and also the database name also you can see. Okay, so authentication time, just you provide the username and password. uh, so while you create, you would be required to remember those username and password. So I have noted down. So admin demo and demo at 123. Okay, so it's always best practice to test the connection. Okay, so ls SQL DB got created. Now we need a link service. So link service is already available. We need a data sets to get into. I think we have a data pair of data sets. We can use those data sets to load the employee data to a SQL database. All right. So before that, we need a table needs to be created to get into the to load the employee data. Okay. So let's create a table. Create table. EMP. Okay. So now our so we have ID, name, and salary. Okay. So you will use those columns only. Okay. So ID, integer, name, varchar 50, and salary, which is again integer. Okay, so let's create that. See, you can see the employee table here. Okay, so we'll load the load to that employee table. Okay, so we already have it here. Okay, so now create a new data sets to load to the SQL database. Right, so we already established the connection. Now we need to create a data set to load to SQL. So let's deep dive again, create a data set for SQL, and this is a data set SQL DB. Okay, uh, for EMP table and SQL DB. Okay, so we can select the link service just now we created, which is SQL DB. Okay, then when you do automatically, it will loads the tables. You see, the connection automatically establishes, and you see all the tables that we have created is already visible here. Okay, so we can select that employee table. Okay, and let's leave as is and create it. Okay, So now let's quickly create a pipeline. So pipeline copy employee. Okay, so copy and the source is our um, employee CSV dataset. Okay, so you can so in our demo training we have
Sir, what is the difference between that file path in dataset and wildcard path?
so wildcard path is file path in dataset. So wildcard, if you know already the path, you can mention over here. Okay.
Okay.
If you don't know, if you want to set it by .csv or something, you need to mention manually.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So now sync. Okay, sync our data set is SQL one. So we will be using SQL one here. Okay. And that's it. Just do a validate and run. You see it's failed. Now again go back and see why it's failed. So it seems some problem with our blob. So the one which we are using in sync, right? I think sorry, source. It's not. It's given employee. This one can you open and see? Okay. So do we have that file over there? Let's see that file. If you uh, storage. See the file is missing. That's why it's giving error. Okay. So let's upload that. Okay. So now we have employee sample. So now go back and go back to our pipeline. Okay. And debug again. See, these are the steps. How do you debug the pipeline in real time? Okay. So if I could have done the first time itself, I could have make it successfully. But in those scenarios, you will not be able to learn it. So as the pipeline fails more and more, you will learn more and more. Okay. So now still it's failing. Now it's something problem with our data set itself because we are using the wrong data set. Okay. So now if you see the error, The error what is saying, um, expand that error and see that. The column property 0 not found in target side. Okay, so now let's see our sync and let's see our preview data. See, so we are getting prop 0, prop 1 and prop 2, right? So the pipeline is expecting the same columns in the target, but in target we have ID, name and salary, right? So this is where we need to map it. So right, this is where we need to map it. You see, mapping. So what column are we mapping with which table, right? For example, you have source this one. This will mapping with ID. Okay. Similarly,
So to copy data from source to sync, in sync side also there should be data type table, right?
sync side we already created a table, right?
Yeah, both source side and sync side, the same header table should be there to copy.
Yeah. So now column 2 maps to uh, name, right? And column 3 maps to salary. Okay. So now this is how it is. Now let's go back and debug again. So you remember I think you asked the first day you asked that question, right? How do you map the columns?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is how you will map it.
Mm. But in use data, the sync should also be with the same header.
Right. So normally you will have the columns over here. You will have a headers
Mm.
like employee ID, name, salary. So that case, the header and the target is auto matching already, right?
Yeah,
So
it should be matching.
so normally you will have the headers. Okay. Now otherwise, let's say that so you have got as a salary, but in your target you have a salary, right?
Mm.
So this is not again matching. So
Yeah.
you need to do the mapping again. So right, you can see now it's successful. Now
Mm.
go back to our employee table and query. Select start from. You see the all three rows got selected, loaded, right? So
Yeah.
this is how we will be doing the loading the data from blob to SQL database. Okay, so this is just a simple scenario, and there are complex scenarios where you have to load multiple files to multiple tables, and also you would be creating. We will be not be creating for every table every data set. Right, we have to reuse some of the data sets for some of the tables. You remember that yesterday we discussed about parameterization, right?
Yeah.
That is where the parameterization will come into picture. But let's say I want to load, there are 100 tables I want to load. So I cannot create 100 data sets, right? So that is where the data parameterization will come into picture, where one data set can load into multiple tables. So how do you configure those tables, and how do you use the dynamic content to load into multiple tables? So we will deep dive in detail in our next section. Okay, and we'll take a real time scenario. I will tell you what the scenario also. Okay, so the scenario is simple. So I have a list of tables. Okay, I have a list of table, and a list of table in the sense that from one to more than one table basically, right? So I have a list of table, and those list of tables I need to loop through the list of tables, and then copy the data from each table from a SQL database to blob storage. Okay, so how do we do? We have a SQL database just now created. We need to get the list of tables first, and then we go to again connect to the SQL database and get those table names and get the data one by one in a loop iteration manner and send to blob storage. And this entire piece will iterate through the each of the tables. Okay, so you want to try this? I'll just try this. Um, it's not that difficult, but you can able to do that. So just try this. How do you want to get the list of tables from SQL and then iterate through and extract each of those table and send to blob storage? Okay, I want you to think about this scenario and come up with a solution. Don't worry whether it's right or wrong. Don't worry. Whatever comes to your mind, just take a pen and paper, mention those steps. Okay, and then we'll discuss in detail and we'll do a uh, um, we'll do a demo for this scenario. We'll do a real time. This is a real time scenario, guys. So in real time, you it's not like just simple employee data you just load it to one table. So this is going to be real time scenario. So you will be tomorrow you will work as a data engineer. This is the scenario you will be given to you. You need to design the pipeline and come back. Okay. So think through that. So far, whatever you learn, think through that and take a pen and paper and write the steps. What are you going to do? Okay, don't worry, right or wrong. We will discuss in detail in our next session, and we will make it a right. Okay, but I want you to think and come up with the thought process.
Okay.
Okay, just try. Nothing wrong in trying.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so that's all for today, and tomorrow Saturday, right? So Saturday, Sunday we won't have any class, and again we'll resume on Monday.
Okay.
Okay, so in this time you can use and reiterate yourself what you learned and how do you solve this scenario and come back. We'll take and we'll meet on Monday.
Okay.